History is written by the victors. But the map is drawn by the survivors. Welcome to Atlas of the Eerie, where we chart the dark, bloody, and impossible coordinates the world desperately wants you to forget. If you drive up into the Plumas National Forest in Northern California during the dead of winter, the silence is absolute. The trees absorb the sound. The snow buries the tracks. It is a place where you can disappear without a trace. And in February of 1978, 5 men did exactly that. They are known today as the Yuba County Five. But the media has another name for them, the American Dyatlov Pass. What happened on that mountain defies every law of human survival, basic psychology, and forensic science. Because they didn't just die. They chose to. To understand the nightmare, you have to understand the victims. Ted Weiher, Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, Jack Hewitt, and Gary Mathias. They were 5 friends from the Yuba City area, aged between 24 and 32. They all lived with their parents. And they all shared a singular passion, basketball. There is a crucial piece of context here. All 5 men had mild to moderate intellectual disabilities or psychiatric conditions. Gary Mathias was a decorated Army veteran who had developed schizophrenia. But despite their challenges, they were highly functioning, independent, and deeply reliant on routine. On the evening of February 24, 1978, the 5 friends piled into Jack Madruga's prized 1969 Mercury Montego. They drove 50 miles north to Chico, California, to watch a college basketball game. They were in high spirits. They had a tournament of their own the very next day, and their uniforms were laid out and waiting for them at home. The game ended around 10 p.m. The boys stopped at a local convenience store, bought some sodas, a few candy bars, and 2 Hostess pies. The clerk remembered them being polite and happy. They got back into the Mercury Montego, and drove off into the night. The drive home to Yuba City was supposed to be a straight shot south down Highway 70. It should have taken an hour. But for reasons that have never been explained, they didn't go south. They turned east. And they began driving up a winding, treacherous, snow-covered logging route deep into the Plumas National Forest. 4 days later, a forest ranger stumbled upon Madruga's car. It was sitting on a dirt road, 70 miles in the wrong direction, sitting at an elevation of 4,400 feet. The snow line was brutally thick. But the car itself? It was perfectly fine. Forensic mechanics examined the vehicle. The gas tank was a quarter full. The engine ran perfectly. The tires were slightly stuck in a snowdrift, but 5 grown men could have easily pushed it out. Furthermore, the keys were missing. Someone had intentionally turned the car off, locked the doors, and walked away. They abandoned a working car, their only source of heat and shelter, and walked directly into a freezing, pitch-black wilderness wearing only light jackets and sneakers. They didn't even have flashlights. Why? What could possibly scare 5 men so badly that the deadly winter forest seemed like the safer option? There is one witness. A 55-year-old man named Joe Shans. On the exact night the boys vanished, Shans had gotten his own car stuck in the snow just a few hundred yards down the same mountain road. While trying to dig it out, he suffered a mild heart attack. Lying in his car, paralyzed by chest pain, Shans claims he saw a pair of headlights pull up behind him. He saw a group of men get out. He yelled for help. But the men didn't respond. Instead, the headlights turned off, and the figures simply melted away into the dark tree line. The next morning, Shans hiked down the mountain and was rescued. When police told him about the missing boys, the timelines matched perfectly. The search team scoured the mountain for weeks. But massive blizzards dumped massive amounts of snow, burying the landscape, and any hope of finding them alive. The mountain kept its secrets until the spring thaw. On June 4, nearly 4 months later, a group of motorcyclists were riding near a remote Forest Service trailer compound, 20 miles deeper into the wilderness from where the car was abandoned. The main cabin door was standing wide open. Inside the pitch-black, freezing trailer, they found a gruesome scene. Lying on a bed, wrapped tightly in 8 heavy wool blankets from head to toe, was a human body. It was Ted Weiher. And the horrific reality of how he died is what elevates this case from a tragedy to a pure, psychological nightmare. Ted Weiher didn't freeze to death the night he walked away from the car. Autopsy results showed that he had lived inside that dark, freezing cabin for between 8 and 13 weeks. His feet were severely frostbitten, to the point of gangrene. He had lost nearly half his body weight. He starved to death. But here is the paradox. The Forest Service trailer was fully stocked. There was a storage shed outside containing enough freeze-dried meals and canned food to feed all 5 men for an entire year. Inside the cabin, there were matches, paperback books, and heavy winter clothing. There was a heavy wood stove, and a massive propane tank sitting right outside that fed a heating system. But the heat was never turned on. The wood stove was never lit. Out of a year's supply of food, only 12 cans of Army C rations had been opened. And they were opened using a military-issue P-38 can opener. Who knew how to use a P-38 can opener? Gary Mathias. The Army veteran. The evidence suggests that Mathias, and perhaps the other men, made it to the cabin with Weiher. They opened a few cans for him. They wrapped him in blankets. And then, they just stopped. The trailer wasn't locked. But instead of turning the knob, someone had carefully removed a pane of glass from the window to reach inside and open it. They behaved like intruders. Like they were hiding from someone. Or something. Over the next few days, searchers found the remains of 3 more men. Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling were found miles away, on opposite sides of the logging road. Their remains were heavily scavenged. Jack Hewitt's backbone and clothes were found 2 miles from the trailer. Gary Mathias, the Army veteran, the only one with survival training, and the one whose shoes were found abandoned inside the trailer, was never seen again. His body has never been recovered. What drove 5 rational, routine-loving men to drive 70 miles into the mountains? What terrified them so completely that they abandoned a working car to die in the snow? Why didn't they turn on the heat in the cabin? Why did Ted Weiher starve to death while sitting next to a mountain of food? Some investigators believe they were chased up that mountain by a threat they encountered at the convenience store. Others point to Gary Mathias's schizophrenia, theorizing he suffered a massive delusion and the others blindly followed him into the dark. But none of it explains the cabin. It requires a complete psychological break for a starving, freezing man to refuse to touch a wall of food or light a fire. Unless, of course, lighting a fire or making a sound would alert whatever chased them up that mountain in the first place. Ted Weiher lay in that dark, freezing box for 3 months, wrapped in blankets, waiting for a rescue that never came. Or perhaps, he was hiding. To this day, the Plumas National Forest refuses to give up the answer. This has been Atlas of the Eerie. If you want to uncover the dark corners of the map the world wants you to forget, hit subscribe. Until next time, keep looking over your shoulder.